The last time you saw me, I was not a dad, and now I'm a dad. And I'd like to tell you the story of how that all went down because I think it's quite interesting and it's quite relevant in terms of where we're at in South Africa with certain institutions. So my wife and I decided a very long time ago that we would like to have a natural birth if ever we do have a birth. And so she got pregnant, and we were like, okay, we're going to have a natural birth. So we spent 9 months studying birth, the processes of birth, and what you need to be prepared for, and how to do it, and what to do. And I think we got pretty good at it, for as good as you can be at anything without any practice. But then again, there was no one there when we made the baby, so that was pretty natural. So getting the baby should be pretty natural as well. I'd learned how to clamp and cut an umbilical cord, and I was ready, and I knew about when the head comes out, you have to twist the body, and then it comes out. Had all that stuff down. So last week Monday, we woke up at 6 a.m. in the morning. 6 a.m. in the morning, and we had a very eventful day. Drove far out to go fetch an engineer. The engineer came to the studio. We spent many hours in the studio working, trying to get things figured out. And then we made dough, and we made pizza, and we baked cookies, and we had a wonderful meal, and we had a bit of a laugh, and then took the engineer back, and then we came back home, and then we decided to go for a walk because throughout the pregnancy we'd been doing 4, 5, 6 kilometer walks every day, brisk walks up here in the mountain, feel the fresh air, revel in life itself. And then 9 p.m. on Monday, when we had been awake for 15 hours, the contractions started. Whew! And we were like, great, we're going to have a baby. In a few hours, we're going to hold our own child. We didn't know what the sex was because we hadn't seen a doctor once in the entire process. Why did we not see a doctor? Well, you see, doctors are so far removed from us. We live 60 kilometers from the nearest mid-sized town, and we live 140 kilometers from the nearest town with a decent, reputable medical facility. So obviously it's really hard. For a long time, we thought, well, perhaps we should have a midwife. And for some reason, both of us felt that the midwife should probably be an old gogo from around here. Because, let's face it, if you're the old gogo on a farm out here in the sticks and you've been catching every single baby in the area, you've got a lot of experience, and there's also a certain warmth and a certain vibe that comes with that, and we were like, that's the vibe. But then we started speaking to people, and we actually did get contacts that could put us into contact. But we didn't take that further, and we also found that for the community it was weird. They were like, really? Is that what you want to do? Why don't you drive to, believe it or not, Bethlehem? Bethlehem. We should drive to Bethlehem and go have our baby there in a modern, state-of-the-art medical facility. So and then that sort of didn't happen. And then we decided, well, we're going to do it ourselves. So anyway, when the contractions started, we were like, hey, wonderful, we're going to have our baby in a few hours. So I started running the water because we had bought a child's pool because we wanted a water birth. And I started running the water, and we put on all the soft lights, all the candles, and started getting all the scents and all the aroma therapy oils, and it was so nice. We were like breathing through it. Was really, well, I was there, I was watching and I was supporting, but really my wife did all of that. And then 12 o'clock came. We'd been in it 3 hours, like, ooh, midnight, but it's okay, we're going to go all the way to the morning because we know it takes a while, and then at 9 a.m. the next morning, she had been in labor for 12 hours, and we're like, sure, yeah, okay, baby, you can come now. It's all right. We're ready. The contractions, obviously, they come and they're relentless. They don't stop. It's just like, and then, and then just like a couple of minutes again, it's like, there they are again. And I was getting really tired. I was pulling amps because we had both been awake since the previous day, 6 o'clock, and now it's already 9 o'clock. So we've been awake for 27 hours, and no sleep, and still just soldiering on, and my wife had also not slept, just like me, but she had also had to cope with the contractions and the pain. So I was feeling for her, but I couldn't do the feeling for her, if you know what I mean. And then we went through the day. It's just contractions. It just doesn't stop. And then you start wondering, okay, so now when is the baby going to come? So 9 o'clock on Tuesday, 9 o'clock at night on the Tuesday, she had been in labor for 24 hours. And we had been awake for, what was it, 39 hours. Still no sleep, and we thought tonight we'd sleep with our baby in our arms, and now we don't know what's going on. It's like, okay, stay cheerful and have meals and eat. You know, you have to be strong. It's like walking up Kilimanjaro. You have to keep eating. And incidentally, when I walked up Kilimanjaro a few months ago, I told my wife beforehand, because I went with my own bag. I didn't want a porter to carry my stuff, and we sort of had this agreement that if I can do that, then we'll take that as a sign that she can do it as well. But I think what she went through was a lot harder than what I did, because it wasn't that hard for me, but I was struggling just keeping up with her, and she was putting up with the pain anyway. Let's carry on. So Tuesday night, 9 p.m. in labor for 24 hours, and then 12 p.m., 12 a.m., like in the middle of the night, and then 3 a.m. on Wednesday morning. She had been in labor for 30 hours, for 30 hours, and I was getting worried. Suddenly I was like, we had studied all these things, we were ready for everything, we've got all this stuff, I've sterilized little strings, everything I'm going to use, and I've got my kit, but now I'm worried, because my wife's been awake for 45 hours. She's been in labor for 30 hours. I've been awake for 45 hours and going through it with her. And but I think it's pressure on the baby as well. To be in labor that long is bad for the baby. And then suddenly I don't know if it was that I was tired or maybe some sense of responsibility or whatever. I was just like, no, I can't stand this anymore. I don't care whether we want a natural birth or not. I don't care how much and we did prepare a lot. We moved out to the sticks, and for 9 months committed ourselves. We did no work. We stayed at home. We committed ourselves to this new life that we were creating, and obviously carrying on with other things. But this was a very central part of the change of lifestyle that we had implemented as of the beginning of this year. And I said, okay, now we're going to get in the car and we're going to go to hospital, because I'm getting worried. Now I'm getting worried for baby, and I'm getting worried for mother-to-be. So we got in the car, and now I'm driving in the car, and it's a couple of kilometers. Now it's 60 kilometers to the nearest town, but we can't go to that town's medical facility because we've been told by everybody, just stay away. Go to Bethlehem. Yes, away in a manger. And then I hit a pothole a couple of kilometers from home, because it's a dirt road. It's a really bad road. And I hit a pothole, something that, because in the past year I lost 8 tires, and on 3 occasions, 2 at a time. Just like, bam, it takes me out. And then you're stuck in the middle of the night, in the middle of nowhere. And by the grace of the good Lord above, we managed to just get through that pothole. But not long after, I hit a porcupine. I completely destroyed it. Bah! It's net penne wat vlieg. It was just like, what do you call those quails? Just all over. And that can damage your tire as well, which it didn't. And not too long after that, again, narrowly missing a porcupine. And then the mist comes, the most intense mist. Mist so thick where you can hardly see 5 meters ahead of you. You know that thing where you try the lights, like brights, okay, not brights, and you try the dims, and you try the fog lights. Nothing will help. The only thing that helps is to travel at 5 kilometers an hour. And you're in the mist, and you're hoping some fool doesn't come from the front. Not that there are any fools coming from the front at that hour on that road. And as it turned out, we didn't encounter a single vehicle. But it could happen, you know. Eventually, a trip that usually takes us to that town takes us about 40 minutes if you really push for it. It took us about an hour and a half. Now we get to the town. Now I'm worried, and I also realized that if the road between us and this town was so full of fog, mist. I keep saying mist, fog. The road from here to Bethlehem is going to have the same fog, but it's going to be a lot more dangerous, and it's going to be a lot more vehicles, and you increase your risks. And this is the last thing I want, because my wife is breathing. She's getting contractions every few minutes. So I thought, okay, let's try this place. So there's a newly erected medical facility in this town, and I go straight to that medical facility. I go straight to emergency, and I wake the people up because they were all sleeping. And I go, wake up, wake up. Hi, I have a woman who's been in labor for 30 hours, and she's not looking good. I'm concerned about her. Can we book her in? Can we take care of this? No, sorry, you must make an appointment. I'm like, you must be joking. Make an appointment? It's an emergency in the morning. Nobody makes an appointment. All right, darling, I think we should have an emergency next week, Tuesday at 3 a.m. in the morning. That'd be great. Yes, let's have an emergency. You don't plan emergencies. You just rock up at the emergency. It's like, it's ER. Isn't that how it works? I remember television. I saw something many years ago. Isn't that how it works? No. No, sorry, you have to make an appointment with the gynecologist. I'm like, you must be joking. No, make appointment. Like, okay, bye, thank you. Get back in the car. Now, the next option in this mid-sized town is the state hospital. State hospital. You see, it is because of state monopolies of power utilities that most of you probably can't see this video because you don't have any power and you don't have any reception and you don't have, because it's falling apart. The country is falling apart as we're watching, and now you want me to go to a state hospital and the life of my wife and my unborn child depends on that? But I'll go anyway. So we get in the car and we go, and as we get closer to the state hospital, the potholes become ever deeper and bigger, and it's just, you have to try your best to get around them. Eventually get to the state hospital, weeds growing out in the parking lot, and a completely disheveled, lights not working. It's just, so we go there to reception this time, not to the emergency section. We just go to reception. Again, sleeping, fast asleep. And I'm like, ladies, wake up. And they're like, yes. And I said, well, I have a woman who's been in labor for 30 hours, not 31 by that time, 31 hours, and she's not looking good, and I'm really worried for her health and for the safety of the child. So I feel this is an emergency. Okay, the maternity ward is that way. I'm like, thank you. And I start running to the maternity ward, and suddenly I enter a next dimension Hollywood horror movie, because it's dark corridors and then it's empty wards and a glove just lying there in the hallway, and then there's no light, and then there's a light just flickering, and there's nothing happening, and there's a surgery here but there's nothing in it. It's just this complete, everything falling apart and desolation, and just a horrible thing to behold. And I can't find this place, and it's not marked, and I see wards this way, and I get to wards, and it's psychiatric wards that are, thank goodness, empty, and but nothing. And then I decide, okay, Bethlehem, we have to go there. And I turn around, I start running back, but now I get lost because it's a maze and there's very few lights, and I just can't find where I am, and I'm like, and I'm getting so frustrated, and probably in my anxiety I'm being stupid. But eventually I get to a place that I'd seen before, sort of a junction. I'm like, oh yes, I've been here before. And in that moment, a moment of enlightenment dawns upon me. Suddenly I realize, wait a minute, there are two things in South Africa that happens a lot. It's trauma from violence inflicted, and it's births. And I've had violence inflicted me in 2004, and I had to go to the hospital for 60 for stitches for stab wounds and cut wounds, and they patched me up. It wasn't exactly a plastic surgeon's job, and I could never wear a dress again after that, which might be a blessing in disguise. But I survived, and here I am to tell the story. And the other thing that happens a lot in this country is that babies are born. So surely there must be something. And in this town, there are people in this town, and there are people who get babies. And maybe some of them get babies because it's going to give them some extra money at the end of the month. Sorry to say, but I think that happens. So they can't afford to go to Bethlehem, so they come to this state hospital. It has to be possible. So I go back in, and I'm looking, and eventually there's this long dark corridor, and I run down the long dark corridor, and I get to the other side, and there's sort of what looks like a jail door, and I go, and I open the door, and light comes. And suddenly I realize I'm in the only functioning department in this hospital, the maternity ward. It's a little disheveled, it's a little untidy, but there seems to be something. There are people there there's a nurse. I see a nurse walking, and there are lights shining. And I tell them the same story, 31 hours, blah, blah. They say, okay, bring, let's see. So I run. I try to find the place, and I get lost again. And suddenly someone who maybe the only one who was in the psychiatric ward is this like zombie apocalypse guy comes. I'm like, ah. And he says, go outside. It's easier. I go like, okay, there's a door. And I go outside, and suddenly I'm outside the building, and I realize that the maternity ward is the furthest possible place from the reception you could be. And I run right around the hospital, and I eventually get to the car. And my wife is like, so is this going to be okay? I'm like, so I lie. I was like, yes, we're fine. So I drive around, get there, we go out, we come in. Now, in South Africa, when you walk into a state institution and you're white, you don't see it so much in Joburg. Having lived in Joburg for 48 years, I noticed that it doesn't happen there all that much. But it's certainly, the further away you get from Joburg, the more obvious it seems to be. And I get to, when you get here in these parts, when you get to the municipality, or you get to the licensing office, I'm going to stop short of calling it racism. I'm just going to say there is a racial apprehension. There's this vibe that needs to be sorted out. There's a, what you want. There's that. And sorry, this is how it is. And the same thing in the hospital. There's like, and then the nurse says to my wife, get on the bed. Which is what you should do. But there's a way to do it. And there's a way to be supportive. And she's like, I actually can't move. I can't get up. And she goes, turns around. But eventually I helped my wife get onto the bed. And it took me about 20, 30 minutes to get it through to the staff that we're here for a common human purpose. And we judge only by the character of the individual. That's all we want. How can I address you? How can I help you? How can we be of service to you? And this is what we would like. Can we make it work? And gradually they start thawing. They see, okay, well, all right, these people are not here to give us a hard time. I think they also wondered, like, what is this? You rock up at the hospital in Lexus, and what is this? A illegitimate child? What is this? Are you connected? What's going on? And I left Actually, I didn't leave my wedding ring. I lost it somewhere at home, and I've been looking for it for a week. But anyway, it's that kind of thing is not important. And then they hooked this thing up. They put these pads on her belly. Now, we hadn't been for any medical stuff, until now. So this is all alien to us. And they put these pads to listen to the baby's heartbeat. And they turn up the volume, and it sounds like the soundtrack of a death metal, like a B-grade Swedish death metal band, because it's the most horrible sound, and it's so loud, and it sounds like a baby's dying. But apparently that's just what these machines do. But does it have to be so grim? And every now and then, one of them was a team of about 5. Every now and then they would come in and just sort of check up, is how you're doing, and they'd be like, no, you must still wait. We're like, I don't think they believed that she had been in labor for 31 hours by the time we rocked up there. And then at 7:20 in the morning, now we'd been awake for 49 and a half hours, and she'd been in labor for 34 hours. It's grueling. It's brutal. We're like hanging on by a thread. We kept telling ourselves, it's just sleep. You can do without sleep. We'll catch that up later. But it's also, the intensity of it. And then suddenly my wife feels, this is it. This is real. This is now. And she starts grunting. And then they say, no, don't push. And we're like, no. She can't help. It's like, I have to push. And they're like, okay, so maybe you are ready. But we tried to give birth at home. Let's just recap quickly. We wanted to give birth at home, a completely natural birth. We get to a medical facility, and the professional advice we get is lie on the bed till the baby comes. Well, that's pretty much what we've been doing for the past 31 hours. At that stage, 34 now. Anyway, so she starts pushing. And then they wheel in a trolley full of injections and all sorts of things. And I'm like, whoa, no, take that right out here. No, but you need it. This is for pain. And we're like, no. And my wife's like, no, I don't want it for the pain. And really, that takes some doing, right? After all that time. I mean, she's almost dying. It's like, ah. She's like, no, she doesn't want, because this is what she wants, is a natural birth. And and they're like, you don't want something for the pain? It's like, no. And those other things, no, but the baby needs vitamin K. We're like, no, you can take that away as well. We won't need the vitamin K. We will definitely have no injections for the baby. We want it all natural. Then the baby starts coming and they want to cut. And we're like, no, don't cut anything. Just stay away. Just make it natural. Just be here. Now, then the head comes out. And I can't even... It's my job to be able to explain things and to sometimes poetically give some version of events, but I can't do that. I'm still too overwhelmed. It's been almost 2 weeks, but I'm still too overwhelmed to even get close to capturing that moment, that feeling. And I knew that you had to turn it, but I must say I think the midwife did a much better job than I would have done, turning it. And then the next moment there's another push, and there's this baby, and it's just like, it's the most incredible thing, and you're so happy, and it's just and then they want to wipe the baby, and I'm like, no, don't wipe the baby. My wife and I both are like, don't wipe the baby. They're like, why not? We're like, no, it's good for resistance and germs, just put her here. And there our child is on my wife's chest. And we're just, that crying, laughing, where you're so silly, and it's just so amazing. And it was contagious, because everybody started feeling that vibe as well, celebrating with us. Because by then we had started becoming friends, it was all, we'd been in there for a couple of hours, and the whole vibe thawed increasingly. So by now we were all like helping each other, and it was a very nice vibe. And then they want to cut the umbilical cord, and we're like, no, don't do this. They're like, no, we have to cut it. We're like, no, wait for 15 minutes. Wait for white, because that's why you want the vitamin K. We want all the blood, because this thing is still, the placenta in there is still pumping, and we want all this blood to still go to the baby. It's the baby's blood. And once that's finished, once the cord is white, then we can cut it. And they're like, these people are crazy. And they kept saying why, and then eventually I figured out the best thing to say is, it's against our religion. And like, oh, okay. There's great respect for that, which is wonderful. I got this from my club years in the 90s. Whenever people want to stamp me, I can't stand it when people want to put their silly stamp on me to go into a club. So I was like, no. And then they're like, you have to get a stamp. And I said, but it's against my religion. Although clubbing isn't. And it is my religion, because that's what we believe, right? So, and then they want to, and then eventually it's time, and they cut the placenta. They cut the umbilical cord, and then they want to draw the placenta out. And we're like, no. She will have another contraction. It will come out itself. No, but no. And at everything they wanted to do, we wanted to do something else, but then they let us have our way, even sometimes with protest. Eventually, the baby gets weighed. I had to sign a bunch of forms for what we didn't do. And they didn't even have an official form. They just said, please just write here to protect themselves, right? Write here that you didn't want this, and you didn't want this, and you didn't want any of those things happening, so that we know that we're okay, clean. So if it ever comes back to us, we don't have a problem. Like, yeah, no problem. They wanted us to stay there for observation until 3 p.m. in the afternoon. We stayed until about 2 p.m., but not until I had quickly slipped out. I got muffins and chocolates and juices for all the staff that had worked with us, because we had put such a nice vibe down there, and everybody was celebrating it. Oh, yes, and then the maternity ward, where we were all waiting now. There are all these other mothers who had also given birth there. I think there were about 5 of them in there. And just that thing of everybody checking out everybody's baby, and that vibe of understanding what you've just been through. I was the only father that was there, and we were the only white folks we had seen in that institution, in that establishment, throughout the entire process, except for 2 that were students, I presume, because they looked very young. And if you were doctors, sorry. If you were doctors and you're watching this, sorry, but they looked really young, and I presume they were just students doing their Zuma year out at this provincial hospital somewhere. But, at one point, when my wife was lying on the bed, there was no pillow. And I was like, okay, well, we look after ourselves. And I went to the car to go get a blanket, which I could fold for her to put her head on. And then when I came back, one of the other mothers had come with a pillow, and she was like, offering it to us. There was that great sense of support. And then the nurses would come and do the rounds, just check up and ask a few questions. And the vibe was so nice. So to tie it up, just to recap, we wanted a completely natural birth, and we got exactly that, a completely natural birth. We wanted to have it at home, but after 30 hours of labor, I lost my cool, and I just went, if something goes wrong, I wanted to be near someone who has a bit more experience than I did. As it turned out, nothing went wrong, everything was 100% fine, and my wife got her baby. She would have had it the way she would have had it at home, except it was now in this hospital on a bed which was stained with the blood and shit and piss and water of how many women who had done it before it, and it's all African, and it's just like, but this is what we are, and this is what we are. The staff, although initially that apprehension that you encounter so often at state facilities, eventually were very professional. Very professional. They knew what they were doing. And we felt safe in their hands. And we felt safe with their assessment and with their handling of stuff. The staff were very respectful of our wishes, the way we wanted to do this thing. And they totally understood it. They sometimes didn't recommend it and advised us otherwise, but they still accepted it. And we really appreciated that. And then they did their best to make it work for the way we wanted to make it work. In the end, it was a really wonderful vibe, and so as it turned out, it was a gogo midwife who caught our baby. Oh, the reason I keep calling it a baby is because we didn't even think to check the sex, the gender. We were just like so happy, and only by the time the cord was my wife said, so what's the gender? We're like, oh yes, of course. Is it a dogtertjie of a seentjie? And so we looked, we were like, it's a girl. I thought it was going to be a boy, but I'm so happy it's a girl. It's wonderful. And we were so happy. And we left there with such a nice vibe. Not until after I had told the staff that, this whole thing with NHI, I understand in the country at the moment we have this NHI thing, but I've always remained on the sidelines. I can't identify with it. Why? Because I've never had a medical aid in my life. I've never been connected to any medical facility through some contract basis or through some insurance thing. It's never been a part of my life. So I don't know about that, and that's why it always seemed far to me. I'd only been in a hospital when I was born, and then when I was attacked, and they had to sew me back together again. And then once, yes, I had to have something cut out, and I also just went to a clinic of sort of a backroom deal. I just gave them some money on the side, and I walked out and I can see again. And now with the birth of my daughter. So at the end of the day, I felt safe. I felt that there was professional. It could have been cleaner. It could have been slicker. I like a bit of slick. It would have been nicer. And I told the staff that you guys get a lot of flack, you get a lot of pressure, but you can't help it. I understand that you can't help it because it's from on high that the problems come, and you're always understaffed, you're always underpaid, and you're always under-facilitated, and you don't have the stuff that you need, and I understand that, but thank you so much. Thank you so much for catching our daughter and making us so happy and that everything went well. She's a very chilled, happy baby. And to my beautiful wife, for being such a Spartan, for being so brave. I never thought you were this brave and this strong. I always knew you were all right, but I've seen a side of you that I didn't realize existed, and that makes me very happy to be the father of our daughter and the husband of you.